The emergency beacon from Thresh 9 mining colony hit the Galactic Council chamber like a physical blow. Every screen, every holographic display, every communication device lit up simultaneously with the same desperate message. The usual calm atmosphere of the chamber shattered in an instant. Ambassador Telvax, the senior council representative from the Vexenair species, felt his crest flare bright red. It was an involuntary response, one he couldn't control when stress hit him this hard. His three-fingered hands gripped the edge of his console as data poured across the holographic displays in front of him. 50,000 colonists, he said, his voice tight. 8 different species. Asteroid swarm impact predicted in 6 days. He looked around the chamber at the other ambassadors, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid clicks and whistles. We need a minimum fleet of 30 vessels. Emergency protocols are active. Who can respond? The chamber erupted into chaos. Ambassadors shouted to their home worlds. Communication officers scrambled to coordinate with their fleets. The noise was overwhelming, but Telvax kept his focus on the responses as they came in. The first reply came from the Vexenair Fleet Command. Telvax's heart sank as he read it. 8 ships available. Mobilization time, 2 weeks. He slammed his hand on the console in frustration. 2 weeks was far too long. The Korthian Empire's response appeared next on the main display. 15 vessels committed to the rescue. Telvax felt a moment of hope until he saw the next line. Location, 3 systems away. Estimated arrival time, 10 days minimum, possibly 12 depending on stellar conditions. 10 days, Telvax muttered. Still not enough. The Zephites, always reliable, pledged 12 ships. Their timeline was better but still problematic. 7 days, maybe 6 if they pushed their engines hard. Telvax stood up, his tall frame towering over his console. We don't have a week. His voice cut through the noise of the chamber. The translator could barely keep up with his rapid speech. Every hour we delay, those colonists move closer to death. Children are down there. Families. We need ships now, not in a week. Other species began chiming in. The Rothians could send 5 ships in 8 days. The Peluvians had 3 vessels available immediately, but they were small craft, unsuitable for mass evacuation. The Quarians offered support ships but no actual evacuation vessels. Telvax felt panic rising in his chest. They were going to fail. 50,000 lives, and the best the entire Galactic Council could manage was a scattered response that would take over a week to assemble. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. A soft notification tone cut through his despair. It was a simple sound, almost polite in its restraint. The display showed a new message, humanity responding. The chamber quieted slightly as everyone turned their attention to the human section of the council. Ambassador Kate Morrison rose from her seat, her movements calm and measured. She smoothed down her dark blue jacket, a habit Telvax had noticed she did when she was about to say something important. The UHSV Prometheus is en route, Kate said, her voice clear and steady. Arrival in 96 hours. The silence that followed was absolute. Telvax stared at her, certain he had misheard. His translator must have made an error. I'm sorry, he said slowly. Did you say 1 ship? The Prometheus, Kate confirmed with a small nod. 1 ship. Telvax's voice rose to a screech that his translator rendered as a painful squeal. Several nearby ambassadors winced. You send 1 ship to a crisis that requires 30? Kate's expression didn't change. Her face remained calm, almost serene. The Prometheus is sufficient. Sufficient? Sufficient. Telvax felt his crest flaring so bright it was almost painful. He turned to face the other council members, gesturing wildly at the human ambassador. The humans mock us. They make jokes while 50,000 souls face certain death. I assure you, Ambassador, Kate said, sitting back down in her chair with that same infuriating calm, we never joke about rescue operations. The Prometheus will handle it. Telvax trembled with rage. Every fiber of his being wanted to scream, to throw something, to make these humans understand the gravity of what they were ignoring. I will file a formal protest, he said, his voice shaking. When your inadequate vessel fails and thousands die because humanity couldn't be bothered to send a proper response, I will personally ensure that. The Prometheus will handle it, Kate repeated, her tone unchanging. She looked directly at him, her eyes steady. You have my word, Ambassador Telvax. Your word, Telvax said bitterly. He sat down heavily, his crest fading to a dull orange. 50,000 lives, and all we have is your word and 1 ship. Kate said nothing more. She simply pulled up a data pad and began reviewing information, as if the conversation was over. As if sending a single ship to save an entire colony was perfectly normal. Telvax looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 6 days until impact. 4 days until the Prometheus arrived. He hoped, desperately, that the humans knew something he didn't. Because if they were wrong, 50,000 beings would die, and their blood would be on humanity's hands. Commander Ryan Foster was reviewing supply manifests when his data pad started screaming alerts at him. He nearly dropped the device, catching it at the last second as red warning lights flooded his small observation station. "Sir." His sensor operator's voice cracked with surprise. "We're picking up the human vessel on long-range scanners." Sir, how is it that big?" Ryan rushed to the main sensor console, pushing past 2 junior officers. The readings made no sense. He checked them once, then twice, then a third time just to be sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. The Prometheus emerged from faster-than-light travel at the very edge of the Crimson Nebula. 8 kilometers long. Ryan had to read that number 3 more times. 8 kilometers. That was bigger than some of the space stations he'd served on. It was bigger than the entire Council observation fleet combined. "Get me a visual," Ryan ordered. "Now." The main screen flickered to life and Ryan felt his jaw drop. The Prometheus was a monster. Scarred metal plating covered every surface. The design was completely asymmetric, with sections jutting out at odd angles. It looked like someone had taken a dozen completely different ship types, welded them together without any plan, and then flown the whole mess through an asteroid field just for fun. "That's not a ship," whispered Kelrix, Ryan's tactical officer. The Vexenair's crest had turned pale blue with shock. "That's a flying city." "A very ugly flying city," Ryan muttered under his breath. He'd seen a lot of ships in his 20 years with the Council fleet. Beautiful Vexenair cruisers with their elegant curves. Powerful Corthian battleships with their imposing symmetry. Sleek Zephite traders that moved like silver arrows through space. But this thing looked like it had been assembled in someone's garage. The Prometheus began moving toward the Crimson Nebula. Ryan felt a moment of satisfaction. The nebula was notorious for its electromagnetic interference. Most ships needed to slow down and navigate carefully through it, using specialized equipment. At least the humans would have to take their time like everyone else. Except they didn't. The Prometheus entered the nebula at full speed. The electromagnetic chaos that blinded most sensor systems didn't seem to bother it at all. The massive vessel threaded through the interference patterns like it had a map, never slowing, never hesitating. "How are they doing that?" asked Kelrix, his crest now flickering between blue and green. "Our sensors can barely track them through all that interference. How are they navigating?" Ryan had no answer. He watched the Prometheus move through the nebula with impossible precision, taking the most efficient route directly to Thresh 9. When it finally emerged near the colony, every ship in the observation fleet got their first clear, close-up view of the human vessel. It was even more bizarre up close. Weapons bristled from every single surface. Not organized weapon batteries like a proper warship, but hundreds of different types scattered seemingly at random. Docking bays dotted the hull like craters on a moon. Strange modules and pods protruded at angles that made no engineering sense. Antenna arrays stuck out in clusters. Heat vents glowed orange in irregular patterns. "It looks like a junkyard that learned to fly," Ryan said quietly. One of his junior officers, a young Peluvian named Torque, leaned closer to his console. "Sir, I'm counting over 300 separate weapon systems. And those docking bays. I count at least 70 external ports. That doesn't include whatever internal hangar space they have." Before Ryan could respond, a voice filled the communications channel. It was cool, artificial, completely devoid of emotion. "This is Prometheus 7 artificial intelligence establishing contact with all vessels. Beginning extraction protocols now. All colonists on Thresh 9, please prepare for immediate evacuation." Ryan quickly opened a channel. "Prometheus, this is Commander Ryan Foster of the Council Observation Fleet. There are established protocols for evacuation operations. Safety procedures, orderly queues, species-specific requirements." The AI interrupted him without hesitation. "Evacuation will be completed in 14 hours. Defense grid deploying now. Please clear your vessels from approach vectors." Ryan blinked. 14 hours? That's impossible. We calculated a minimum of 36 hours with a full fleet of 30 ships. You're one vessel and... Calculation updated based on actual capabilities, the AI responded. Revised time estimate, 14 hours, 17 minutes. Please clear approach vectors to avoid collision with deployment drones. Ryan looked at Kelrix, whose crest had gone completely white. Are they serious? The Prometheus answered that question immediately. The massive ship began to unfold. Hundreds of hatches that Ryan hadn't even noticed started opening across the hull. They'd been so seamlessly integrated into the armor plating that they'd been invisible on sensors. Panels slid aside. Compartments revealed themselves. The entire ship seemed to be transforming right before their eyes. Sir, Kelrix's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, things are coming out. Ryan watched in stunned silence as the Prometheus released its contents. Drones. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They poured out of the hatches like a swarm, each one different from the others. Small defensive drones. Larger transport drones. Specialized scanning drones. They spread out in a rapidly expanding sphere around the ship, moving with frightening coordination. How many drones am I seeing? Ryan asked. Torque's hands were shaking as he checked his console. I've counted 3,000 so far, sir. And they're still coming out. Point defense turrets emerged from hidden compartments that shouldn't exist. Whole sections of the hull slid aside to reveal weapon batteries. The ship wasn't just big. It was armed to a degree that seemed completely excessive for a rescue mission. Ryan opened the comm channel again. Prometheus, what exactly is your ship's classification? Are you a warship? A colony transport? There was a brief pause before the AI responded. Classification, multi-role deep space vessel. The Prometheus is designed for extended independent operations in unsupported territory. That's not a classification, Ryan said. That's a description. Correct, the AI said simply. Shall we begin the evacuation, Commander Foster? Ryan looked at his tactical display. The Prometheus was already positioning shuttles for launch. Defense drones had formed a perimeter. The whole operation was moving forward whether he approved or not. Yes, he said quietly. Let's see what you can do. The Prometheus had arrived and nothing about it made any sense. The asteroid swarm arrived 2 hours early, and Ryan Foster felt his stomach drop when the sensors started screaming. His tactical display exploded with red contacts. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. The asteroids were coming in faster and denser than the initial predictions suggested. Ryan gripped his console, his knuckles turning white. All ships, prepare defensive positions, he shouted into the fleet channel. Get your shields up and start targeting the... He never finished the sentence. The Prometheus didn't wait for orders or coordination or anything resembling normal military procedure. Across its massive 8-kilometer hull, hundreds of hatches burst open simultaneously. What came out made Ryan's blood run cold. Drones. Thousands of them. No more than that. The number on his tactical display kept climbing. 5,000. 7,000. 10,000. They poured out like angry hornets from a disturbed nest, each one moving with a precision that seemed almost alive. Mother of... Ryan couldn't even finish the curse. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. The drones didn't scatter randomly. They moved in perfect coordination, forming patterns that shifted and flowed like a living thing. Groups of 50 surrounded larger asteroids, firing in synchronized bursts that reduced rock to dust. Smaller drones darted between fragments, destroying anything that got through the first wave. Larger combat drones positioned themselves as mobile barriers, their shields overlapping to create protective zones. Point defense turrets emerged from hidden compartments Ryan hadn't even detected during his scans. Whole sections of the Prometheus's hull that looked like normal armor plating suddenly revealed themselves as weapon batteries. The ship created a defensive sphere around itself and Thresh 9, and then it began systematically obliterating everything that came close. Sir, Kelrix whispered, his crest flickering through 6 different colors in rapid succession. Sir, those drones are thinking. They're adapting to the asteroid patterns. They're learning. Ryan could see it too. When a cluster of asteroids came in from an unexpected angle, the drones immediately reorganized. No delay. No waiting for commands. They just adapted. His comm officer suddenly spoke up. Commander, I'm getting reports from the surface. The shuttles are loading colonists now. Already? Ryan switched his display to show the surface operation. His jaw dropped for the second time that day. Dozens of shuttles were landing at different evacuation points across Thresh 9. But something was wrong. Something was strange. He watched one shuttle land near a group of Metherian colonists, beings who breathed methane instead of oxygen. The shuttle doors opened and the interior atmosphere was already adjusted. No transition chamber. No protective suits. The Metherians just walked right in. Commander, Kelrick said, his voice shaking slightly. The shuttles are changing. I just watched one shuttle reconfigure its entire internal atmosphere for methane breathers. Another one just adjusted its temperature controls for silicon-based lifeforms. How is that possible? Ryan pulled up detailed scans of the shuttles. His eyes widened as he understood. They're modular. Everything's modular. The interior compartments can reconfigure in real time. He watched in fascination as a shuttle designed for oxygen breathers in one trip returned to the surface and transformed itself for chlorine-breathing Zephytes on the next trip. The walls moved. The life support systems swapped out. Temperature controls adjusted. All of it happening in the few minutes it took to fly from orbit to surface and back. That's impossible, Torque muttered from his station. The engineering required to make that work would be. I can't even calculate it. But Ryan was seeing something even more incredible. The Prometheus wasn't just running one operation. It was running multiple operations simultaneously. Defense drones fought the asteroid swarm. Shuttles evacuated colonists. Medical drones sorted arrivals by species and need. Repair drones fixed damage to the ship in real time. Cargo drones organized supplies. Everything happening at once, everything coordinated perfectly. It's not a warship, Ryan said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. It's not a colony ship or a hospital ship or a transport. Then what is it? Kelrix asked. It's all of them. At the same time. Ryan opened a direct channel to the human diplomatic station. Ambassador Morrison, I need you to explain something to me. How is this possible? This violates every principle of ship specialization we've ever established. You can't have one ship that does everything. It's inefficient. It's wasteful. It's working. Kate Morrison's voice came through, and Ryan could hear the smile in her tone. You build ships for specific purposes, Commander. That's fine when you have a whole galaxy backing you up. We build our ships for survival. Specialization is a luxury we couldn't afford. Before Ryan could respond, a massive explosion lit up his forward screens. An asteroid the size of a building had gotten through the drone screen. It slammed into the Prometheus's shields with enough force to vaporize a normal vessel. The Prometheus barely seemed to notice. The ship rotated smoothly, presenting fresh shield sections while the damaged area withdrew behind thick armor plating. Repair drones swarmed over the impact site immediately. Within seconds the shields were back to full strength. They take a beating and keep going, Kelrix whispered in awe. They just keep going. The Prometheus 7 AI's calm voice filled the comm channel. Evacuation status, 80% complete. Estimated time to completion, 2 hours 43 minutes. All systems nominal. Ryan looked at his tactical display. The Prometheus had been fighting for 6 hours straight. It had taken dozens of hits. It was evacuating 50,000 beings of 8 different species. It was managing thousands of drones. And the AI reported all systems as nominal, like this was just another Tuesday. Impossible, Ryan muttered. But it was happening right in front of his eyes. The humans had sent one ship and somehow, impossibly, it was actually enough. Captain Jake Mitchell had commanded the Prometheus for 6 years, and he thought he'd seen everything space could throw at him. Today was proving him very, very wrong. Captain? Beth Cooper's voice cut across the bridge, sharp with panic. His sensor officer rarely panicked, which made Jake's stomach clench immediately. We've got a stellar fragment detected in the swarm. Jake was out of his chair in an instant, moving to Beth's station. What kind of fragment? Beth's face had gone pale, her hands shaking slightly as she pulled up the readings. Neutron star fragment, sir. The radiation levels are off the charts. I've never seen readings this high outside of a ship's core breach. Of course it is, Jake muttered, his jaw tightening. Because a simple asteroid swarm wasn't enough. The universe had to throw in a chunk of collapsed star matter just to make things interesting. How long until impact? 12 minutes, sir. Beth looked up at him and Jake could see real fear in her eyes. Captain, it's destabilizing the entire asteroid field. The gravitational pull is making the swarm accelerate unpredictably. Everything we calculated is now worthless. Jake turned to look at the main view screen. The asteroid field that had been dangerous but manageable was now chaos. Rocks were colliding with each other, fragmenting into thousands of smaller pieces. The trajectories were completely random now. His communications officer spoke up. Sir, the Council ships are broadcasting emergency retreat orders. Jake wasn't surprised. Those ships weren't built for this kind of punishment. Their shields were designed for normal space hazards, not radiation from a neutron star fragment. Commander Foster's voice crackled through the comm system. Prometheus, we have to withdraw. That radiation will fry our systems. Our shields can't handle it. Jake took a deep breath. Understood, Commander. All Council vessels withdraw to safe distance. He paused, then added more firmly. We'll finish this. Captain, we can't, Beth started to protest. Jake cut her off, not unkindly but with absolute certainty. We can. We will. He turned to face his crew of 300. Every single person on the bridge was looking at him, waiting for orders. All hands, damage control protocols. Lisa, I need you to reroute power from non-essential systems. Tom, get me firing solutions on that fragment. Lisa Davis, his chief engineer, was already pulling up power distribution maps on her console. Her fingers flew across the controls. On it, Captain. Shutting down recreational areas, reducing life support to minimal in cargo sections, pulling power from secondary labs. Tom Hayes at the weapons station shook his head. Sir, we can't destroy it. That fragment is too dense. Our weapons would just bounce off it like throwing rocks at a mountain. Then we don't destroy it, Jake said simply. We deflect it. Beth, give me tactical options. What can we do? The Prometheus shuddered as Jake spoke. The radiation was already hitting them even from this distance. The ship's automated systems started blaring warnings. Hull temperature rising. Shield degradation at 7%. 8%. 9%. Jake made his decision. Helm, position us between that fragment and the colony. Full power to forward shields. Sir, that's going to expose us to the full radiation blast, his helmsman warned. I know, Jake said quietly. Do it anyway. The Prometheus moved into position, and the radiation hit them like a physical hammer. Jake felt the deck shake under his feet. Alarms screamed from every station. His damage control board lit up like a festival display. Hull breaches on decks 9, 10, and 11, someone shouted. Fire suppression systems offline in Section C. We've lost power to the aft maneuvering thrusters. But even as the reports flooded in, Jake's crew didn't stop. They didn't freeze. They worked. Lisa was rerouting power through backup systems Jake had installed specifically for situations like this. The Prometheus had 17 different power distribution networks. Most ship designers called it wasteful redundancy. Jake called it survival. Matt Rogers, the damage control chief, was already suiting up. I'm going to deck 10. Automated systems are failing. We'll seal those breaches manually. Go, Jake ordered. Beth was still working at her sensor station, her hands steady now despite the chaos. Captain, I might have something. If we can create a temporary gravity well, we might be able to alter the fragment's trajectory enough to miss us. How? Jake demanded. Specialized missiles. We load them with graviton generators, detonate them in a precise pattern. It should create enough distortion to shift the fragment's path. Tom looked up from weapons. We have 12 gravity well missiles in the magazine. Never used them in combat before. There's a first time for everything, Jake said. Load them up. Beth, give Tom the coordinates. The next few minutes were the longest of Jake's life. The Prometheus groaned around him. Metal screamed. Systems failed. Entire sections went dark as power conduits burned out. But his crew kept working, kept adapting, kept finding solutions that shouldn't work but somehow did. Missiles ready, Tom announced. Firing solutions locked in. Fire. The missiles streaked out from the Prometheus, 12 bright points of light against the black. They detonated in a perfect geometric pattern, and space itself seemed to twist. The fragment's trajectory shifted. But only slightly. Not enough, Beth said. It's still going to hit the colony. Jake's mind raced. Tom, bring the railgun online. Target asteroids A7 through A19. The railgun. Tom looked confused. Sir, that's experimental. We've only test-fired it twice. Then this will be test number 3. Fire on my mark. The experimental railgun charged with a sound like thunder. When it fired, the entire ship shuddered. Asteroids shattered, their debris creating a second deflection vector. The combined gravitational effects from the missiles and the debris cloud pushed the fragment just enough. It careened past the colony, missing by 50,000 kilometers. Close enough that everyone held their breath. Far enough that they survived. Beth slumped in her chair. Final wave of colonists on the surface. 10,000 left. Estimate 2 hours to complete evacuation. Jake dropped back into his captain's chair, suddenly aware of how tired he was. Let's bring them home. Around him his crew kept working. Battered, exhausted but unbroken. The Galactic Council chamber was quieter than Ryan Foster had ever heard it in his entire career. There was no shuffling of papers. No whispered conversations between ambassadors. No background hum of translators working overtime. Just silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence that pressed down on everyone present. Ryan stood at the center podium, his dress uniform feeling too tight around his collar. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on him. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species, all waiting to hear what he had to say about the Thresh 9 incident. He cleared his throat and began his official report. The UHSV Prometheus sustained catastrophic damage during the rescue operation. Hull breaches across 17 sections. 42% of external defensive systems destroyed or damaged beyond field repair. 3 of their main power conduits completely burned out. He paused, looking around the chamber. But they saved all 50,000 colonists. 0 casualties. Every single being on Thresh 9 made it out alive. The silence stretched for another long moment. Then Ambassador Telvac spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. 1 ship. They sent 1 ship. Ryan nodded slowly. Yes, Ambassador. 1 ship. We calculated a minimum requirement of 30 vessels, Telvac continued, his crest flickering a pale, confused blue. We mobilized our entire emergency response network. And they sent 1 ship and succeeded where we would have failed. A Vexenair engineer named Kelrick stepped forward from the technical observation section. He carried a data pad loaded with information, but his hands were shaking slightly. Ryan had known Kelricks for years and he'd never seen the engineer look so rattled. Honorable Council members, Kelricks began, his voice uncertain. I was granted permission to tour the Prometheus during its repair operations at Station Gamma 7. I needed to understand how they accomplished what they did. He looked down at his data pad, then back up at the Council. Their design is chaos. There's no other word for it. Pure chaos. Several Council members leaned forward with interest. They have 17 redundant power systems, Kelricks continued. 17. Any one of our ships has 3 at most. They have manual overrides for every automated function. Every single one. Their weapon systems can be reconfigured as mining tools. Their mining tools can be used as weapons. They have a medical bay that was simultaneously treating 14 different biochemistries during the evacuation. Oxygen breathers, methane breathers, silicon-based life forms, even a crystalline entity from the Theta system. All at the same time in the same facility. A Korthian representative interrupted. That's impossible. The contamination risks alone. I saw it with my own eyes, Kelrick said firmly. Their medical bay has modular compartments that can seal off and reconfigure in minutes. It violates every principle of efficient engineering we've ever established. It's wasteful. It's redundant. It's brilliant, and I don't understand how they made it work. A Korthian admiral stood next, his metals clinking softly as he moved. The crew is equally illogical, he said, pulling up his own report. Captain Mitchell is a former combat pilot and a certified engineer. His second officer is a xenobiologist who also holds a degree in stellar navigation. Their weapons officer also handles diplomatic functions. Their chief medical officer has training in mechanical engineering. Every single human aboard that ship has multiple specializations. It's completely inefficient. Inefficient, several council members murmured in agreement. The word rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Kate Morrison had been sitting quietly through all of this, listening without expression. Now she stood, smoothing her jacket in that deliberate way she had. The chamber fell silent again, waiting. You're absolutely right, Kate said, her voice clear and strong. It is inefficient. By your standards. She walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the quiet. Let me tell you about humanity's journey to the stars. We didn't have a galactic council waiting to welcome us. No established trade routes. No allied fleets to call for help when things went wrong. No emergency response networks. No safety nets at all. Kate gestured to the hologram of the Prometheus that floated above the chamber. The massive ship looked even more battered now, sitting in dry dock with repair crews swarming over it like insects. We reached space alone, Kate continued. Every colony we established, every ship we sent out, every person who left Earth knew they were on their own. If something went wrong, backup wasn't coming. There was no backup. So we learned to be completely self-sufficient. We built ships that could do everything because we couldn't afford to build ships that could only do one thing. She turned to face Telvax directly. You call it chaos. We call it adaptability. You see inefficiency. We see resilience. You see wasteful redundancy. We see the difference between life and death. Her voice softened slightly. The Prometheus doesn't do any one thing perfectly. It's not the best warship. It's not the best hospital ship. It's not the best transport or the best engineering vessel. But it does everything well enough. And today, well enough, saved 50,000 lives. The chamber remained silent, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not uncomfortable but thoughtful. Telvax slowly stood, his crest shifting through several colors before settling on a respectful purple. One ship. You sent one ship and succeeded where we calculated 30 would fail. He paused. We owe you an apology, Ambassador Morrison. And our profound gratitude. Kate nodded graciously. No apology necessary, Ambassador. You didn't know what we were capable of. Honestly, sometimes we surprise ourselves. A few nervous laughs rippled through the chamber, breaking the tension. One ship was enough, Kate said simply. For us it's always been enough. That's how we learned to survive. That's how we'll continue to survive. Ryan watched the council members as they processed this new understanding of humanity. They were beginning to realize that humans weren't superior in technology. They weren't superior in numbers. They were superior in adaptability, the ability to improvise, to make anything work under any conditions, to thrive in situations where specialists would fail. As Ryan left the chamber later, he passed by Telvax speaking quietly with another ambassador. The words drifted to his ears. The humans are either the best allies we could ask for, or the most dangerous enemy we could possibly face. Ryan smiled to himself as he walked away. Probably both, he thought. Definitely both.